Okay. All right, I will call the meeting to order. What's loud? The Everman City Council Budget Workshop for July 9th, 2024, and the time is 5:02 p.m. Item A, discussion items, budget workshop, payroll and benefits, water and sewer fund, and special revenue expenditures.
We might need a budget warehouse, I don't know. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's loud. Just keep in mind when everybody's talking, please use your mics.
All right, do you want me to start or do you want to start? Okay, well, congratulations on making it to budget. We made it to budget. Susan has been working diligently, long hours. If you drive around the city anytime after 5, you've probably seen her car here between the hours of 5 p.m. and midnight working on this. So she's put in a lot of work preparing this budget. This year is a strange year. So can you turn my mic down just a little bit? Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. This year is a strange year for us because we have so many economic changes within the city that we are trying to forecast really what we won't know until we get closer to the end of the budget process as it relates to revenue. So what we've tried to do is go through here and work through personnel and benefits to the best of our knowledge and what our desires would be and prioritize different things. But keep in mind, depending on what revenues look like when we get to that stage, we may have to come back and make some adjustments on that. So just keep in mind as we're working through this and putting this together. So I believe all of you have been given a presentation. Susan did a phenomenal job putting this presentation together for you. I'm going to kind of speed through it because we are crammed for time tonight. I don't want to highlight each and every single one of the pages. You can certainly take time to review that afterwards. Again, you're not approving anything tonight. This is a workshop. This is just a discussion. We can come back and amend and edit these as we progress forward throughout the process. So I'm going to take your attention first to the page at the top. It says City of Everman FLSA non-exempt pay scale. This year we are proposing a 1.5% cost of living increase. What that means is that employees on the pay scale, all employees will receive a 1.5% COLA. Any employees that are not capped out will be increased a pay step, which would give them a 3.5% increase, meaning that all employees that are not capped will still get a 5% increase this year. Employees that are topped out on the pay scale will receive a 1.5% increase. That's almost identical to what we did last year. Last year we did that same thing with the exception of police and fire. We made a large adjustment to both police and fire pay scales. You got something? You were reaching.
1.5%.
Yes, ma'am.
That seems to me like it's very low. I know we have some of them that are capped out.
Capped, yes. Yeah, if they're at the top of the pay scale, they'll be capped out, yes.
Yeah. So what will they, they're only going to get the 1.5%?
They would get 1.5%, yes, ma'am.
See, that just don't seem right to me. You know, I'm sorry. It just doesn't seem fair.
How many employees are topped out?
4? Is it 3 or 4?
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only a handful.
That'd be somebody who's been here a while.
I know. That's what I mean.
One.
But 1.5%. And you know what? Even though they've been here, they do a lot of work.
It's
And
4.
1.5 to me is nothing.
So you're saying we should do bigger on the COLA instead of 1.5?
Something, yeah. I can't, to me, that's nothing.
What would you
You know,
suggest?
let's just, here's your $1 for doing a good job. You know, come on.
What would you suggest?
I don't, you know, 3, 5, I don't know, something that,
Okay, so based on that, money lady, I know no numbers are carved in stone yet.
Right.
In your foresight, could we handle a 3% on the COLA?
So
I don't-
one thing to bear in mind is whatever the COLA is, you have to add the step increase to that. So you might be granting a 3 or a 4% increase to those that are capped out, but you're going to be granting a 6.5 or a 7% increase to those that aren't capped out. Now, don't get me wrong. There isn't an employee one here in the city that's gonna tell you, oh, no, don't do that. They're gonna love that, but it's just something to bear in mind, the budget impact. So yes, you might be increasing the top outs by 3 or 4%, whichever your desire may be, but that's also going to increase the pay grades. We can't increase some without increasing others.
And the steps are already built in, right?
The steps are already established.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know they are.
So, before we get hung up on this, there's a couple other things in the benefit section that I want to go over. Keep in your mind that it's not just the salaries. There's additional benefits that we want to talk about as well. I'm not saying don't come back to that idea, but until we really have our revenues,
Yeah.
Right, it's a magical time.
it's kind
I
of,
don't think it's
yeah,
fair for the ones that
give
are
or take.
capped out, they're just getting basically $1 here. You know,
Yeah.
they do hard work.
For some,
They
it,
do.
yeah, it is, you're right.
I know we have that scale, and I know it was there for a reason, but now I'm thinking the reason's not beneficial for them at all.
Okay,
But-
the
okay,
step
continue on.
To the COLA, previously we used to do like 3-4%.
So previously we used to do across the board percentage raises. There wasn't a cost of living adjustment, there wasn't really a pay
It's just a
scale.
flat-
It was very flat across the board.
Right.
The downside to that philosophy is you can have employees, and we had this happen. We had employees that would take a position, they would remain in that certain position, and it could typically a low-level position. And if they were in that position for 20 years, they were making more money than their supervisors were because they knew that every year they were going to get a 5% increase or a 6% increase. And their supervisor may have started, 5 or 10 years later. They're making more money than their supervisor, but they're not willing to take on the additional responsibility that a supervisor has to put in place. So that's why at some point, most places put in a cap where, okay, if you remain in this position, you are eventually going to be capped out. Your option for increase in compensation is to promote or to seek other opportunities within the city. We're trying to promote promotion. We want people to go after those additional jobs and take on additional responsibilities.
I understand.
That's the purpose behind it. Now, I'm not arguing with you. I do agree that 1.5 is low. I mean, that is a low
Yes.
cost of living increase, so I won't disagree there. I do think maybe we go through all of this and we can come back.
Yeah.
We can do like what we did a couple of years ago, where we put together some different options maybe and show you like what a 1.5%, well, you're gonna see what a 1.5% will look like, what a 3% would look like, what a 4%. We could do that as well and bring that back.
I can understand if we had, 20 people capped out, yes, but, we're talking 3 or 4 people, I mean, come on. But anyway, go ahead and finish,
Yeah.
continue on.
Keep that in mind.
It's not set in stone, that part
All right.
we can come back to.
So this is the non-exempt pay scale. Remember, non-exempt meaning hourly rate. They are hourly employees. The next page is the exempt pay scale. So this is a salary pay scale for our exempt employees. Again, that's, yes, ma'am.
Going forward, could y'all number the pages
Yes. Yeah, we can.
in case you'd like to put reference back to a page?
Sure can.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, on the next page, top of it says compensation summary by fund. This is just a breakout between the general fund and the water and sewer fund. If you recall, these are the only two funds that we have employees listed out of. If you're wondering about EDC, remember we had to make some adjustments. EDC is paid for out of general fund, but we do an administrative transfer to collect those funds back out of EDC fund.
76 people in, do you pay out of general fund?
76
76.
employees, yes, in general, and 11 in water.
Wow.
Total of 87 employees. That's a big number.
Had that in.
Yeah.
You remember the days we was trying to stay below 50?
Yes, ma'am. All right, next page is the general fund compensation. This is just a breakout by departments. And am I okay cutting into this, or am I?
Yeah, you're
cutting-
good.
Okay,
You're
all right. General fund compensation, so a breakout by department, so you can see the different increases here. Overall, we're looking at about a little over 5% increase in general fund and salaries. You will see some variances here, some larger numbers and some smaller increases. Remember that salary savings comes into effect. We have employees who may have been here 5 or 10 years. If they drop off for a one-year employee, that reduces the overall salary expenditure, even though we're increasing our compensation rates. So it tends to level out. Next page is the water and sewer fund compensation breakout. This is broken out into two different departments. First department is the water department, which is underneath Gilbert. And the second department is the utility billing department, which is underneath Edna. There are only 2 employees here because Edna is actually compensated for out of the court fund, not the water fund.
General fund.
All right, next page is overtime summary by fund. As we get more into budget, you'll see some overtime concerns. We have made some adjustments here. The administration fund, we're looking to increase from 500 to 1,000. This is primarily due to some unforeseen overtime and some additional positions that were added in. Another jump is going to be the fire department. So we've had some interesting turnover this year with staff that has resulted in our overtime budget being way over, the overtime being way over budget. So we're forecasting an increase there, although Chief believes his staffing is leveled out and hopefully will remain leveled out for the foreseeable future. Police, we're proposing a $5,000 increase. Dispatch, not much of an increase. Dispatch was kind of a new challenge for us this year. Remember, we started understaffed with the consolidated dispatch, and it's taken a long time. She's now fully staffed. Unfortunately, working all this time short-staffed has resulted in some unforeseen overtime, but she anticipates this new staff to be around for a while, so she's not foreseeing any major impact on overtime. There are 15 altogether in that department, I believe, including her. 14 dispatchers and a director, if I remember right. Animal control, obviously with the increase in call volume and some staffing, we're proposing an increase there. We're not much over budget in that area, but they are getting called out more. We are seeing an influx of animals, so there's been a higher need. We've also been short on a part-timer position, so full-timers have had to pick up on the part-time vacancy. And then our other part-timer also just submitted a notice, so he'll be leaving us as well here in the near future, so they'll have to pick up that as well as we're going forward. Edna gets no overtime. She's not allowed overtime. Just kidding. Water, they are actually doing very well on their overtime budget this year. They are under budget, so we're not proposing an increase there. And then proposing just a $1,000 utility billing increase on overtime. That's just on the rare occasion the UB staff has to stay late or may stay for an event, National Night Out, those kinds of things to help with those events. The next few pages for council, these are the individual salary breakouts for your information. I do want to point out we try not to call anybody out by name, but if there's anybody in here that you feel like we need to discuss, we can absolutely do that. I would rather discuss the department rather than the individual, and I'm also happy to discuss directly with any concerns that you have outside the meeting one-on-one, in any direction you want to go. But overall, you should see some increases. There is a couple of notable changes on here that I do want to bring to your attention. So under administration, we do have a part-time vacancy. We did have a part-time employee who has left. We are currently leaving that position vacant. I'm using the salary savings from that position right now to try and fulfill an additional ACO position, full-time animal control officer position. This year we have proposed to the city of Forest Hill an increase in the contract for them to pay for an additional animal control officer, full-time animal control officer, so that should give us 3 full-time employees, with 1 part-time employee being out on injury leave and likely going to remain out on injury leave for the foreseeable future, and the other part-time employee putting in his notice. It's left us kind of short-handed in that department, so we needed to do something to fill that, so I made the decision to go ahead and use salary savings from this vacant position and the salary savings from those 2 part-time positions already in animal control to go ahead and fill that full-time vacancy.
Used all of your part-time salaries. Is this gonna go into, what do we do about part-timers maybe in 25, fiscal year 25?
So we will still budget for the position. And assuming that the Forest Hill agreement gets approved and compensation is increased to allow for another animal control officer, at that point, then we can fill this vacancy
Okay.
with a part-time staff member.
Thank you.
Are we going to hire
We do have a code enforcement officer. He's listed underneath the police department. That is Corporal Scott Dabbs.
Right, but he doesn't drive around looking at weeds and stuff, and that's a problem.
Well, he does. I mean, he issues notices. I don't have the exact number of notices, but I can pull that data for you. I know that he's worked on the Paradise Apartments case, and he's been, at least within the last couple of days, issuing several notices and working on cases. I know that an increase in code enforcement is probably a desire for council. Okay, I knew this conversation was, I told you this conversation was coming. I mean, we can look at adding another code enforcement position, if that's what the council wishes to do, maybe even add a part-time code enforcement position. There's a big difference in cost between a full-time employee and a part-time employee. So we could maybe add a supplement part-time code enforcement position if that's something the council would like to see.
Does Donna still go out and do anything?
Donna is no longer in code. Donna solely handles permits, and her plate is very full. And I will tell you, I'm very impressed with her performance in permits. She pretty single-handedly handled thousands of permits that came through with all the developments. Not without hiccups, of course, but I think any human being would have some hiccups. There's been some good progress there. And she now has a part-time employee helping her in that area too already. So I foresee with the developments that we have coming in that I don't think I could add any more to her plate and still see us being successful in permits. We have some things in the permit area that we're trying to improve on, and it's going to require 100% of her focus.
Okay.
Do we have enough officers driving around patrolling at night?
No. So it's kind of a unique situation. So as far as our police department's concerned, in the daytime, we have roughly 15 to 16 police officers that are here during the week. At night, we still only have 2 patrol officers. Now, the reason why we have so many here during the day is because we have administration, the fire marshal, Chief Watley, myself, 8 school resource officers, patrol officers, detectives. So during the daytime, there's typically a lot more police officers here. We don't have the staffing, or we haven't had the staffing to increase officer presence at night without making some severe adjustments to how that structure is. But I would literally have to eliminate positions at this point in one division to create night shift officer positions. So the only,
What needs to be done at night is, because, on my street alone, people's cars are broken into and stuff stolen.
I don't disagree that that the police staffing needs to increase. You won't catch me arguing with you on that. But what I will tell you, and let me go through this here real quick, and we'll come back to this, I promise. A couple of the other changes on here, one other one that I wanted to highlight was underneath fire. So if you look underneath fire, there are a couple of vacancies. We have put in here a proposal to add some firefighter positions. And I wanted to highlight that because although that I feel like our police presence needs to increase, I think our fire department is probably the most critical at this point. Last year we took care of public works and we added a couple of public works positions and we're able to make that work. But the staffing level within our fire department is very subpar. It's not just subpar for our response, it's subpar per NFPA. The NFPA staffing absolutely is 4 per truck. We can't meet that now. We are operating with 3 firefighters on shift at any given time, typically 2 on an ambulance and 1 on a fire truck. That requires a lot of innovation on behalf of the fire chief and the officers in charge on the fire department to be able to respond to emergencies and deal with them effectively. We have to increase staffing there. Now, there is some light at the end of the tunnel with the ESD, the sales tax that was passed and adopted by the citizens. We are anticipating some increased revenue potentially to fund some firefighter positions that may help us out in that area, but we don't fully know the answers to that yet, and I don't know that we will know the answers to that before we adopt a budget, because there has been, and I don't know any other way to put it, there's been such a turnover and change within the county and within the ESD that they are very behind the ball on doing their budget preparations. We don't even have fiscal year 25 contracts yet, and we normally know what those contract rates are long before budget. So we won't know that information on what's going to happen with ESD funding until likely after the budget has been adopted. More than likely what, I'm sorry?
I just wanted to mention that although it shows 4 vacancies, 2 of those are current positions that he's just recently had a couple of individuals that have left us. So it's really just adding 2 new positions, not 4. It's a little misleading on there, but
I'm glad you clarified that.
yeah.
And so that still isn't even going to get us to where we need to be. And again, depending on what revenues look like, and Chief knows this, we've talked about this, depending on what the revenues look like when we get to the revenue portion of the budget, that may be something we have to cut back on. We just don't know. But Councilwoman Allen, I'm happy to go back. I actually have a command staff meeting with our police command staff in the morning. I'm happy to talk with them about alternative, innovative ways to see what else we can do to try to deter crime over in those areas. I wholeheartedly agree that we need to increase police staffing. We need to increase fire staffing. Susan absolutely needs accounting help, more so than the part-timer that she's got now helping out with some credit cards. I mean, she needs an accountant. She needs somebody to really help her out as our budget management has increased as the city has grown. It's becoming more and more difficult for one person to do. Everything you see related to budget, all these numbers, all the management of it, that comes directly from her. That's a lot of work for one person. I just get to present it like I did it, but it's not me, I promise. It's her.
Back to the code thing,
Yes, ma'am.
you said a part-time, maybe?
That's an
I guess-
option.
But didn't you say at one time that there was 2 officers that would be handling codes?
Yes, there are other code certified officers, and they do drive around, but one of them has been promoted to a corporal, so now he's got other responsibilities in addition to just being a police officer. He serves as a
So we just have
supervisor.
the one?
No, corporal, no. Dabs is solely code enforcement. The other one that was sent to code certification school, he is now a patrol corporal, so he works night shift patrol.
So we don't have another one?
Not that's helping out with code. Now, right now, during the summertime, I have allocated 3 school resource officers, since school is out, to support code, and they are actively going out right now, working to do some heavy enforcement on code violations, and have been for about the last 2 weeks, I believe.
Okay. Is
Here's
Robinson
the thing, though,
certified
I
in that?
know that Officer Debs, gets pulled out a lot, and I know he has his other job. Okay, but like if he has to go to a school for 2 or 3 weeks or so, that leaves nobody, right?
Yes.
So, what are we supposed to do about that? I mean, we should have at least a backup somewhere. Whether it be another police officer at the time or something, and maybe that's something they can do, since there's 2 or 3 of them this summer doing this, they'll know more.
I've got a question. If a police officer is driving around, thank you. If a police officer is driving around and he sees a car parked in the middle of the front yard, he can't stop and write them a ticket?
No, ma'am.
Why?
Because there is certain rules associated with code as it goes to court. So
Has to be written first,
correct?
Yes, if it occurs on private property, a code enforcement officer has to be certified in order to enforce that. It can't be just a regular police officer. So
Okay.
that's why we had to send Corporal Dabbs to school to get certified for that.
How about a car that's sitting on the street that's out
yes.
of registration?
Yes.
Okay, then we need to talk, because there's a slew of them out there. I see them as I'm driving around. In fact, I've even reported a few. They're still sitting there.
Okay, all right.
It's minimal, but you have to also remember that we have 2 officers that work patrol. So their job, they're responding to calls, they're conducting traffic enforcement. I mean, I think what you're asking is essentially adding an additional job function on top of what's already a pretty full job description for them. It just gets difficult at times with the level of staffing that we've got.
Okay, I'm asking, the ones that are helping with the code stuff this summer, can they not help fill in if Officer Dabbs is out doing something else?
Not on private property stuff. They haven't gone to the
I would have to send them to training to do so, but yes, I believe we could probably come
Is
up with a
that
plan.
something that we could think about,
Yes,
or either hire a part-time?
yes.
To also, even myself, when we're driving around, we all know our city ordinances. We can stop and knock on a door and advise them, you can't park your car in the front yard. If you do, code enforcement will be by you. And so all of us do that proactive side. I know I do, every other officer, if we see something that's obviously an egregious act, we'll stop just because we want the beautification for the city. And so that is a level of proactive enforcement. It's just not on paper until Corporal Dabbs arrives at the house. So
Or
that
food,
does
or
happen.
food
correct.
trucks or horse trailers parked in the street?
Okay, I have a suggestion.
Okay,
He's going back to his meeting tomorrow, his command staff meeting, come up with some ideas, and if we're coming back to you with options of additional amounts on salaries, then we can come back, if he has an idea to, hire an
that's
additional
what I
person,
was-
then we can come back with those numbers as well.
Right.
But I think that we need to move on for time's
yeah,
sake.
well, I'm just saying, think about the other police officers maybe filling in if we have to.
Yes, ma'am.
And the yard
Yeah.
that needs mowed, all the yards that are way out.
100% agree. I will work on that and bring something back to you. Another couple of changes on here. So underneath administration, the city hall receptionist position, underneath city secretary, the events coordinator position, and
And permits under her as well.
where is?
It's under Mindy.
Okay. Underneath the city, okay, I'm sorry, let me start over. Underneath administration, the city hall receptionist position, and then underneath city secretary, the record/permit clerk, and the events coordinator position. We are proposing that we convert all 3 of those positions from part-time, as they currently are, to full-time employees. So that's another big change on here.
So there's 2 part-times in the city secretary and the city hall receptionist under admin.
Yes. Those are all currently part-time positions. We are proposing we change those to full-time
And
positions.
you've done your
Then-
calculations as if they're full-time.
Correct.
No other staffing changes under police currently. Under dispatch, no staffing changes are recommended, other than I do want to propose a change in title. It's not a promotion. Currently, Ms. Patton, who serves as our Director of Communications, I would like to just change her title to Chief of Communications. It's more of a play on words than anything, but as in her role, she works with other fire chiefs frequently, and I just think it's a respect thing that she have a title of Chief of Communications. I think it'll be more deserving that way. So again, not a promotion, just a change in title. Underneath animal control, we are proposing a animal control officer, full-time animal control officer. This will be funded, we will offset this with revenue that would be received by the city of Forest Hill if they agree to the new terms. We proposed a $75,000 increase on the agreement with them, increasing the overall agreement for animal control services to $150,000. Two other things to quickly highlight, I'm sorry, that I forgot about, just so you know the big changes on here. Human Resources Director position and the Court Administrator position, both those positions, you're going to see a big increase on those. It is because we are anticipating both those employees to get their certifications, which will result in them being brought up to the pay scale that they're supposed to be at. So that's why you see a big jump on those two. Office Court Administrator. Last page.
Edna, on the back page, the last page.
Yep. That's why you'll see a big increase there. Am I forgetting any other highlights on here? Any questions on the personnel part? Okay. All right, moving on, employee benefits. So benefits is always one of those things that we won't know the final answer until the last minute. We may not know the final answer until actually closer to October following adoption of the budget. I believe that we are proposing, was it 5 or 10?
10%.
10%.
On medical.
So we are proposing a 10% increase in medical allowance, medical budget. Do not anticipate it getting that high, but we would rather be safe than sorry when we're talking about benefits. We have always offered 4 plans that will continue. Teledoc, we are anticipating a little bit of increase with dental, vision, short-term and long-term disability. We're not reflecting that increase here. We expect that 10% that we're putting on medical to cover both, so we should be fine budgetary-wise. Basic and voluntary life insurance, responder health, and employee assistance programs. This would raise the contribution for each full-time employee from $1,000 a month to $1,100 a month. Currently the employee opt-out stipends, so we offer an option for employees. If a full-time employee has health insurance coverage otherwise, they can provide proof of health insurance coverage, maybe their spouse, they're covered on their spouse's plan or something like that. And we will give that employee a $250 stipends a month, so that plan will remain in effect. Our HSA contribution is $355 a month, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, but that's the max contribution.
That is the max.
So we can't legally go any higher than that right now, so that's a pretty good
The amount
contribution.
changes every year, and this is right up to the max contribution.
Really no changes as it relates to dental, vision, or life. We are proposing a change with TMRS. So currently we are at a 2-to-1 match with TMRS, meaning that the city pays 10% of the employee's salary and the employee pays 5%. We are proposing an increase in that from 5% to 6%. Many other cities that we're competing with offer a TMRS match of 7%, 2-to-1 match. We are slowly trying to get to that point. I will tell you, we've had some employees, actually had one employee in particular within the fire department who expressed some interest in wanting to see us boost our retirement options a little bit more. I think this will help not only long-term employees that have been here a while, but this will help attract and retain employees. So with that, that would add an additional expense of $4,217 per month to make that change from 5% to 6%. But that is certainly something that employees look at is what our retirement option is and what the match rate is. So I think that's a good benefit for us to add. Any questions there? Okay, next page at the top says benefits summary by fund. This is just a breakout between the general and water fund on what the anticipated benefits will be. Total of $2 million in benefits. Next page, general fund benefits. This is broken out by departments within the general fund, so you can see the breakout here of what each fund is costing us on benefits. Flipping over to the next page, water sewer fund, same thing, broken out into the two departments within the water and sewer fund, water department and utility billing. Same breakout. Any questions on those? All right, let's go into expenditures real quick. At the top, it says expenditure summary. This is the special revenue fund, so each one of the funds are listed here. You should see, what is that, 7 funds, of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 fund, 9 funds, listed here. Flip over to the next page. At the top, it says TCOL, Special Revenue Fund. The TCOL fund is a fund that the state of Texas allocates a certain dollar amount per officer, per full-time officer that we have. So that funding is restricted solely to provide for training. It has to be spent every year. TCOL gives us some money. We spend it every year on training for our police officers. So that's the budget there. There's really no decision-making to be made here on that. Next one is our economic development. I'll briefly go over this. Really no major changes other than we are proposing, and this will obviously, when it comes to the EDC budget, this is at the discretion and approval of both the city council and the EDC. So Mike's going to take this budget as well to the EDC for their consideration and approval. The only big change here is we are seeking a capital expenditure budget this year for $75,000. We are going to propose to the EDC to build a stage here in our park with a large concrete pad and electrical to provide for all of the entertainment options that we do, all of our events that we have each year, the Christmas tree lighting, Celebrate America. We wanted to have this stage really reflect the EDC, so we want to provide some personal touch from the EDC on there, whether that be a sign up on the top. It says Everman Economic Development. But with all the businesses and all the impact that we're seeing here, we're seeing our events grow more and more. We're hearing citizens call for more events more and more. People have wanted to see music festivals and activities outside. So we felt that offering a stage out here would really add to that and be beneficial for the community and help boost the economic impact here locally. This Celebrate America Festival was the largest festival that we've had thus far. I mean, that was a huge turnout. Thousands of people were here. That's going to continue to grow as we see these developments come in. It also grants another opportunity as a venue for people who may want to rent a facility and use that for their special events, whether it be a wedding, a graduation, whatever it may be. So we think that would be a great option for EDC to invest in as a special project this year. Am I stepping all over you? Pretty good about that. That stage rents for about $2,500 a pop every time we rent it.
Yeah.
And we rent it about 2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah. I was just going to mention the savings also.
Yeah, so we
That
won't
it would-
have to rent that stage
Right.
any longer. That'll provide some savings there as well.
We only have $20,000 for bridge grant project, is that just for 2?
Yes, that amount has been the same for
I know, but I'm
several years.
that's for 2, because it's up to $10,000 grant.
So you want to highlight the big grant?
The big grant, it's 10,000 maximum, so, if someone comes in with a $14,000 project, we would fund 7 of that, and they would fund the other 7. So we have had a few projects that have gotten a maximum of 10,000. This year we didn't have anybody submit any applications. But typically, I think the highest we've ever had is 2 in 1 year, which would total 20,000 if they did 2 maximum projects. can't hear what she's saying.
She said that, what are the incentives?
Incentives would be
Oh.
any agreements that are entered into, like a 380 agreement, any tax abatement programs, anything like that that we would
Cash
enter-
grant, yep.
Cash grants, any of those that, there's a wide variety of economic development tools that can be utilized.
Can be used to attract businesses to the area.
And the other thing to consider too is we're budgeting this based off historical use. It does not prohibit if a business was to come in and the EDC wants to choose to spend more than what is budgeted, we can absolutely amend that budget. So this is just kind of based off historical use, what is typically allotted and allowed for.
And we have done that before. We had one business come in, and we actually gave them a $50,000 cash grant. So it's just a matter of going back to the EDC board and the city council approving, adding funds to those particular line items when something like that happens.
So it's not paid back directly. So what happens when we transfer funds around, the funds may not be deduced entirely. So what I can do is we can go back when we, on the budget audit and see what revenues are like. What I can tell you, right offhand, and I've meant to pull, I knew you were gonna ask that tonight too, and I meant to pull the number beforehand. I can tell you what our revenues look like for the Civic Center this year, if you give me just a minute. Of course, I hit the back button and not the, I will pull that up for you and I'll share that with you. Moving on to street improvement tax. So, and Susan, remind me what we decided to do here, because we made a change on,
Yes, the small, you'll see that we wiped out the expenditures from this account here.
yes, ma'am, street
Yeah,
improvement
street
tax,
improvement
4A.
tax.
Yes, ma'am.
We zeroed out those expenditures, and because they were small amounts, and I said that we're already not receiving that much money into the street improvement tax fund, and for us to repair a road, we really need to save all that money for what its intended purpose, and not just use it on traffic cones and this, small things that can be paid for out of the general fund. So it was my recommendation that we move those expenditures over to the general fund side and allow this fund to accumulate so we can actually get some things paid for. Yeah.
So each fund, we have, there are administrative costs associated with management of each one of the funds. The street improvement tax, did you bring the breakout?
I did.
Perfect. Can you highlight what is hitting the street improvement fund?
Okay, so they pay a percentage of admin expenses, including bank charges, city secretary expense, finance administrative costs, financial management software, utilities for the electric, natural gas, vehicle maintenance, just basic. And it's not that they're paying the whole amount for any of these. It's a 5% of the budgeted amount of each of these items. So, but there's a breakout that we have for our administrative transfers for each of the funds. So some funds pay for additional items that, the street fund doesn't necessarily have to pay for.
Okay, so street maintenance, is that you, the potholes and stuff?
There was originally, we were charging the street improvement tax fund for general street maintenance. That's what Susan was just saying, is that we have chosen to eliminate that from hitting the street improvement tax fund and pay for that directly out of general fund, allowing the street improvement tax fund to build so that we can have a larger sum of money available to do
The larger
special
projects.
projects. So we're not eliminating street maintenance, I think we're actually increasing our street maintenance
We-
allocation.
We did, yes.
We're just moving it, instead of it being paid for out of street improvement tax, to being paid for out of general fund.
Okay, street maintenance, okay, that would be like the supplies.
It could be asphalt, materials, Contract labor, yes, ma'am. But you'll see that when we go over general fund expenditures on Friday, we will cover that at that point too.
Right.
All right. Moving on to Crime Control District. Crime Control District historically has only paid for vehicles. We're just anticipating it to do the same. That's why you see only transfers out. This number is large because it pays for many of the vehicle leases for our police units that we have each year. So that is the only thing that hits Crime Control District, primarily because the sales tax revenue has just been low. There hasn't been a lot of money sitting in there. As sales tax revenue increases, if we start to build more funding in Crime Control District, we can absolutely look to allocate funding towards other law enforcement programs as well. But right now, there's only been enough in there to really pay for the vehicles.
So this is only for the police cars, correct?
Correct, yes, ma'am. Next one is the tax notes fund. There's really nothing here other than just paying back the tax note each year.
No.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk about 2020 still?
Yeah, this is the fund where the residual amount that we had from this bond was
Oh.
put into this account. So money coming out of here was for the street project, that 223,000. But going forward, there's nothing proposed out of this account or out of this fund for next year. It's just, there is some money there, but it's basically already been allocated for, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how much is there? That's okay, we can come back to that.
All right, next item is the debt service fund expenditure summary. So this is just an overview. If you go on to the next page, you'll see it broken out by account.
There's not much, it's less than 100,000.
Less than what, I'm sorry?
It's less than 100,000.
Less than 100,000, okay. And I'm gonna have Susan highlight this one too. I know this is essentially our debt payments.
Yes. This is the general fund. The debt service payments that are paid for out of the general fund. So that is the 2013 bond, the 2020 CO issue, and the fire engine. So it's pretty straightforward, just the payments and the interest coming out of here.
Okay, for the fire engine, you have, 100,000, is that the balance, or is that just payment?
That's
That's
this
a
year's
payment.
payment.
That's the principal payment for next year.
Oh, I wish that was the balance.
There's interest also, and that's included in the top line item.
All right.
I believe we have 7 more payments on the engine. Engine, whatever you want to call it.
All right, next page, it says water sewer fund expenditure summary. This is just broken out by the different departments, including debt service, because as you recall, there is a separate debt service that's paid for out of water sewer. Water, sewer, and then utility billing. If you go on to the next page, water and sewer fund debt service, this is the breakout for the debt service.
Yep.
And I know this is paying for several of our water line projects, the 2020 bond,
Yep.
and the Texas Water Development Board loan that were all secured.
The long-term notes that we took out on the water meter project a few years back.
Do you know how much is left on that by chance? I should have asked you that before here, but. What was the total time, do you remember?
I believe it was a 10-year note, and it was 1.4 million at the time.
So we're probably, that was 2018, maybe?
No, it was before that. It was
Was it?
2014, 2015.
2014? So we're coming up on
Yeah.
expiration.
There's
now.
just a few more payments, I believe.
Okay.
Do we have any water meters or wells that need to be repaired, or that we need to budget for?
Well, let's go on to the next page,
Yes.
to the water expenditure fund. Yes, ma'am, we do. Not necessarily water meters. Those tend to be pretty fluid. Gilbert does a great job of managing that program. We do have a couple of issues related to water well maintenance. And again, it's primarily because historically, there have not been good maintenance programs as it relates to our water wells and preventative maintenance. Gilbert is currently working on a potential contract with a maintenance provider where we could pay out for maintenance over a period of, say, 5 to 7 years, and that would take care of cost of painting the towers, painting the well tanks, storage tanks, the general maintenance that we should be keeping up with each year, and plan for it a little bit better because we have been more reactive than proactive, and Gilbert's working on trying to get more proactive on that. But the expenditure summary fund, if you start working through the water sewer fund, and I'm going to go kind of quick because I know we're cutting it close down to the wire here on timing. We're increasing the computer program and maintenance up to $10,000. This is primarily because the SCADA cost was hitting a different line item here. So we just need to adjust that to be in the appropriate line item. So that's why you see such a drastic increase on computer programming. Employee uniforms is staying the same. Laboratory fees we're reducing just a little bit based off historical performance. Minor equipment, he's asking for $2,000 more in minor equipment. Everything else is staying the same until you get down to TMRS and the down through law salaries. All those are increasing because obviously compensation is increasing and benefits are increasing. So you'll see those increases reflected there. Miscellaneous, he didn't really have much of a budget before. Last year he had a $500 budget. We're just proposing a $1,500 budget. Miscellaneous can include any small items that he may need or request, such as hand tools, drills, etc. And then transfers out is increasing also by a pretty large percentage. And this is to help offset the cost of land use and other things that we can't use for development. That's included in there, so.
The large increase on the professional services is what he was referring to earlier on the maintenance program.
Oh, yes.
So we took it from 100,000 to 230,000, and that is to cover the maintenance program that he is working up for the wells.
Uh-huh. Under professional services, last year the budget was 100,000. We're proposing 230,000 this year.
Yes.
That will cover for well maintenance, helping him to paint the wells, the storage tanks, maintain them better. That's the program that he was talking about implementing. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's working on trying to get the details, which, a program like this obviously is going to come back for council approval because it would require an engagement, a contract engagement, I would assume. So it'll come back to council for the full details. He's working on trying to iron out those details right now.
Yeah. We just want to make sure the money was there once he gets it.
Any questions on water? All right, we'll jump on over to sewer. Sewer is pretty much a pass-through account. We don't have any employees that are paid for out of the sewer fund. We collect this through the water bill and turn around and pay Fort Worth because we contract with Fort Worth for sewer treatment and transport. So again, this fund is pretty much just a pass-through fund. We are increasing the wastewater treatment from $600,000 to $700,000, and that's primarily due to the increase in connections. We just had a brand new residential subdivision that was installed. We've got new commercial businesses that are coming in. So naturally, our expenditures are going to increase, but our revenue also increases to offset that. So this is pretty much a wash with what we collect on our water bill.
Last one.
Moving over to utility billing. Couple of small changes here. Postage and freight, we are increasing. This is primarily, again, due to increase in connections and service. And I think we're consolidating.
We're splitting the expense from, it was previously all paid for out of general fund, but water has increased the number of letters and notifications that they've been sending out when they have shut-offs and all that stuff. So anyway, so we split the expense from general fund and water and sewer fund on the postage and freight.
We're also proposing an increase in travel and training. The reason for that is because we are going to increase compensation for the UB clerks to help supplement the court function that Edna performs, because currently Edna is the only one that serves as the court clerk here. There's no other option. If Edna's not here and somebody wants to come in and has to handle an issue with the court, they can't talk to anybody else because they're not trained in it. So we've talked with both of the UB clerks. They're willing to get training on that and to help out in that area. So we're increasing the travel training budget here for them to cover those costs. Utility billing printing is going up because of the increase in connections. Obviously, the salary impacts are all listed right there as well. And then garage sale sign, we were previously hitting general fund for that.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And so we're putting it underneath the UB because that's a UB function where they do that, budgeting $1,000 a year for the garage sale signs. Not for utility billing. Yeah, and thank you. Do you have any questions? So again, I do want to reiterate, I know we were going through this at 100 miles an hour. I want to reiterate, our door's open. We can sit down with anybody that has any questions as you go through this with a fine-tooth comb. Happy to do that. We can do that individually. We can do that. We have an expenditure workshop on Friday. If we need to come back and review any of this, because I know we went through this pretty quickly tonight, we're happy to do that then as well. Whatever we need to do, we're available. So I don't want you to feel like you're rushed. We're 100% available to you. So any questions we can do.
Okay, so with that being said, the budget workshop is adjourned at 5:58. For everybody take 5, and then we'll start our next meeting. I will call the joint meeting of the Building and Standards Commission and the Everman City Council to order. It is July 9th, 2024, and the time is 6:12 p.m. Let's see, so everybody please rise for a moment of silence by the Pledge of Allegiance. So, okay.
We don't have to do that if they've done it individually. You can skip that if you'd like.
Okay, we're going to skip that. So we'll drop down to citizens' comments. Anybody signed up? No. Okay, at this point, the city council meeting is recessed, and we'll start deliberation and determination on cases. Item A, case number 1394, continuation, deferred decision. Continued hearing to receive sworn testimony concerning whether the following structures comply with the standards set for in the City of Everman Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Article 4, and the 2018 International Building Property Code as adopted in Article 18 of the Code, the Building Code, Chapter 4, Article 3, Electrical Code, Chapter 4, Article 5, Residential Code, Chapter 4, Article 6, Mechanical Code, and Chapter 4, Article 7 of the Plumbing Code, Chapter 4, Article 8. What is that?
That's Zoom. You can
Okay. Okay, to discuss the structures located at 929 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 928 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 917 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 929 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, and 900 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, and more commonly known as the Paradise Apartments. Because this is a continuation of the hearing from May 21st, the board will allow the parties to provide updated information and evidence regarding the conditions at Paradise Apartments. Owners who want to repair the structure must have a detailed plan for the repairs, including an estimated cost and a schedule for completion. Finally, anyone can address the board regarding the property unless someone presents evidence that the structure is safe or that it can be repaired. The structure will or may be ordered demolished. Only people recognized by me and duly sworn in may address the board. Speakers shall move to the podium when directed, speak their name and address, and then present their evidence or make their argument. The board may ask questions of any speaker, including city staff, during the public hearing. Owners or their representatives may also ask questions of the board or of city staff. After the public hearing is closed, only board members will be allowed to speak. The board will have a discussion and a vote to determine if the structure is dangerous and issue an order to either secure and repair the structure or to demolish it. An order by this board is final, and any appeals must be filed in district court. It is now 6:16 p.m. And at this time, I open the public hearing for case number 1394 involving structures located at 929 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 928 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 917 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, 929 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140, and 900 Corey Road, Everman, Texas, 76140. All structures being located in Tarrant County, Texas, with the legal description being Track A, Block 21, Everman Park, 6 filing, in addition to the city of Everman, Tarrant County, Texas, according to the plat thereof recorded in volume 388-38, page 30, map records, Tarrant County, Texas. I would ask anyone who wants to speak to the board to stand up and raise their right hand and be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Right, may be seated. City of Everman staff may proceed with its presentation of the staff report, evidence, and recommendations for the record.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Do you gentlemen want to come on up?
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And then I'm assuming we have Mr. Childress on Zoom.
Yes.
Is that correct? Mr.
Yes.
Childress, can you hear us okay? Okay, perfect. We lost our screen here for us to see you, so we just have to hear you. All right. Okay. So, Mayor, if it's okay, I just want to cover one thing first, and then I'd have a couple of questions. So, the minutes read from the last meeting, and I just want to read this motion verbatim for the record because I think it's important on this case. Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Mackey to defer decision on case number 1394 and place this matter for consideration on the Building and Standards Commission agenda for July 9th, 2024, at which time the owner shall provide reports, surveys, or studies for all buildings at the Paradise Apartments complex, including, but not limited to, structure issues, roof concerns, electrical hazards, mechanical hazards, plumbing concerns, and any and all other code violations that constitute substandard and dangerous conditions. And the owner shall provide a detailed scope of work, time schedule for the work to bring all buildings into compliance, and provide detailed financial information, including a budget and a source of financing for required repairs, which will be delivered to the city staff by Friday, July 5th, 2024. We did receive documents that were shared with you this evening, but my question for Mr. Singapore is, staff has not been able to review anything that's related to the detailed scope of work, time schedule for work, detailed financial information, including a budget, and source of financing for required repairs. Are we missing those documents, or maybe do you have those tonight?
No, you're not missing those documents. I'm happy to provide an explanation, Mr. Spencer.
Okay.
Good evening to everyone. It's nice to see you all again. We believe the evidence provided, in substantial part, the evidence submitted by Mr. Tony Childress, has demonstrated and established, and we hope the board sees, that this property is not dangerous or unsafe, and it is safe for its inhabitants. There are repairs identified within Mr. Childress's report and related appendix documents of various professionals, consultants who have examined and investigated the property. Ownership intends to perform those repairs, but we do not believe that the property is unsafe or dangerous for its inhabitants.
Okay. So I'm going to look to our attorney, or I'm sorry, our engineer first. I think my understanding is staff has reviewed what little they have since Friday on this. Their staff's opinion is there is simply not enough information contained in here to say that it is not a danger, although there is not enough information in here to also for staff to not agree that it's not substandard, correct? So we're still in a limbo phase at this point. Okay. And I think it's the fire marshal's opinion based on the report that was submitted to include the electrical portion of the report that the electrical engineer that conducted this study referenced the buildings being substandard overall. So I don't think, obviously it's a board decision, but I don't think staff's recommendation would be that this report satisfies everything to our need to say that it's not substandard. I think there's still more data needed, and I'm going to be very blunt and just say I think it's frustrating that we did specifically ask for scope of work, time frame of work, cost of work, and that wasn't provided. So our question would be is what kind of time frame does ownership need to comply with everything that's outlined both in what the motion was from the council as well as the local government code, if I'm not mistaken, on what's asked for on this? Is that fair to say?
So I'd like to address what the mayor presented at the very beginning, which he said, the question is whether the structure was safe and whether the structure was dangerous. That's how it was presented at the beginning of the very first hearing that we had here. That's how it was presented again here. If it was safe and if it was dangerous. That's what we had to present evidence on. My understanding, our understanding, was that there were sort of four choices for the board. One, they could dismiss this if the determination was that the structure was both safe and not dangerous. Two is that they could determine that the structure was unsafe or dangerous, but there was a repair plan in place, or a repair plan that would be presented and basically the feasibility. Three, it was determined that the structure was unsafe or dangerous and therefore needed to be torn down. Or four, that there would be a continuance for some time to get more information. That was our understanding from the beginning about this process. When we went back and got our engineer, Childress, to do all of these analyses, and you can see in his executive summary, he concludes, and we presented this to you guys in advance, this is page 3, the very beginning of the executive summary. While CES identified deficiencies, CES does not agree with the city assertion that the structures are dangerous structures, nor are they unsafe as defined in the reference codes. And then there is substantial information in this report that says why it is neither unsafe nor dangerous. That is the information that we presented at the time when the determination was made by our engineer that it was not unsafe or dangerous. It was also our understanding that therefore there was no repair plan that needed to be formally provided, because that's only if the board determines that it is unsafe or dangerous. And we made note of it again. I tried to listen very carefully when there was a question before the board that the mayor presented. He said that we needed to provide evidence that the structure was safe, and that we needed to provide evidence that the structure was not dangerous. The conclusion in this report is both of those. That's why we did not present that additional information about all of that. Had our engineer come back with the conclusion that it was unsafe or it was dangerous, all that additional information would have been provided. There is one subset of information that was not presented in the documents to you guys, to the board that we supplied, that I would like to present verbal testimony on, because we didn't produce documents on it, and that is financial condition. I believe that staff had mentioned that they were concerned about liens on the property and had raised that at the previous situations, and I have information on that issue and can address it fully. We didn't provide the documents because they're public record on the liens. But that goes to financial condition. We don't think that it's necessary as it relates to the repair plan because of the reasons just mentioned, but there were liens on the property, and I've done a full review of all of them. There are a number of different liens. I only reviewed back about 5 years. That's typically sufficient. The statute, the time period for foreclosing a lien in Texas was 2 years up until 2022, and now it's 1 year. That's the statutory time to foreclose a lien. All of the liens are outside that statutory period, with the exception of 2. Those 2 were related to CMS Mechanical Services, which is a lien from February of 2023. I presume these are the ones that staff and the council found when they were asking about these issues, and that's why I wanted to address them. That was one for $16,000 and some change relating to plumbing and electrical work. We have confirmed that, in fact, we did pay $13,000. There was a disagreement over the amount and the value of that work. We paid that amount well in the past to CMS Mechanical. The reason we were surprised is they were supposed to record a release. They did not do that. We need to get in touch with them in order to do that, but that one was paid, the dispute that was at issue. The second one was from August of 2023 from Birdsong Electric for about $852. The same day that lien was filed, we paid them, I think it was about $820. There was a dispute about $827. There was a dispute about the value of that one as well, which is why it wasn't paid, and that's why it ultimately happened. They should have recorded a release on that one as well. Both of those, the releases, should have been recorded by the vendor and supplier based on the satisfaction of those. That's why we were surprised and weren't aware of it. We're going to go back to them and get them to record those. All the other liens of any kind, the newest one, other than that, was from 2021. All those are outside the statutory period, and there is no there's no continuing encumbrance on the property or anything else. I'm happy to go into any questions or concerns that the council may have about those liens. I believe that the question was about the financial wherewithal or whether they were paying their bills. This, I think, would cover most of that. As for the financial capabilities, we don't think that that is an issue that we had to present on based on the findings of our engineer. However, they have put six figures in dollars in repairs and costs and everything else as it relates to that since the beginning of this year. I think that's about a rough estimate based on the amount that they put forward and are continuing to put that forward. I don't think that that was at issue. But that's the reason why that information was not supplied, because of our understanding about it was necessary only if there was a determination that it was dangerous or unsafe. And Mr. Childress was very clear in that it was not and explained why. And that's why we didn't provide that additional information, is that that's our determination. Are there things that need to be done? Yes. And are there things that will be done? Yes. The repairing of the joists, you guys can see the plans detailed in here. We were able to identify the joists that need to be replaced even prior to pulling the ceiling out because of some issues with the asbestos and the state on that. That's mentioned in the report. There is one of the roofs, there's a leak. We looked at all the roofs and there's one leak, one unit that leaks. That was unit 12 that Chief Watley and Corporal Dabbs and others were able to see. That's the one that has a leak. That roof section needs to be repaired and that needs to be fixed. There was one life safety issue on the electrical, which we had previously repaired before we came last time. There are no other life safety issues that were identified, and there are repairs that need to be done as part of an improvement plan that they're working on still. But that's why you didn't get that information, is because that's what we were coming today, is to ask that the board determine that it was not unsafe. And Mr. Childress is available for testimony on that. I will say, he may be in and out. He's on a plane. He was supposed to be here. His plane got delayed by 4 hours, and so he's on the tarmac now. So once he's up in the air, I think he can talk, and he can talk right now. There may be a period of time he may not be able to. But that's why we wanted to have that front and center in the report, was the ultimate conclusion about that. And I think that we didn't have information on the other buildings at the time we were here last time. He went and he inspected those other buildings. He inspected all of the units that Chief Watley inspected. There were, in addition to Building 929, there were 7 units in the other 4 buildings. We had Mr. Childress inspect 16 additional units, not just 7. All the ones that Chief Watley inspected, and then basically double that to show some additional ones surrounding it. That information is in here as well, and the conclusions are there. We can address and are happy to address any particular questions that you guys might have about any of the details that are provided in here. We didn't want to come and use your time up again and go through the whole report when one of the things that the board had asked us in particular was, get us the documents in advance so we're not here the day of. And we apologize for getting them to you late last time on the day of, but we got them in the time provided so that we don't want to just go through the whole report again. But we are prepared to address any of the questions about those. I have had an extensive conversation with Mel Clark, our electrician. Tony Childress took all of those reports into consideration, and all the reports and all the work that was done in formulating his conclusion that it was neither unsafe nor dangerous. I believe that one of the concerns that Chief Watley had mentioned was, if there's 7 or 8 joists that are all broken, right, would that not create a dangerous condition? I'm sorry? Sure, I apologize. Then the engineer mentioned that that might be something that would come up. We've confirmed that that is not the case in any of these units. Mr. Childress did an analysis to show which joists potentially have sag there, even in spite of the fact that we can't get into, like I mentioned, we're having some problems with the state on the asbestos-related stuff, but he did additional work to figure out what may be damaged even without seeing it. And there was not that condition present of 5, 6, 7 of those side by side that would create. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's correct, yes. And this is the caveat. We did not inspect all the units in all the buildings. We inspected the same ones that Chief Watley and Veritas did, and then above and beyond that, some extras, right? And in all of those, you see photos in Mr. Childress's report. There are photos, but there's also diagrams. Right after the photos. Let me see. They look like this. You'll see a lot of those diagrams, and the units that need to have joists replaced are identified specifically. So you can see, and then the estimate from Mr. Childress of the number of joists that need to be replaced in those particular units. And where you see a unit that has no markings of any kind, there's no damage perceived. And I think an example would be what is identified as S17 down here in the footnote, and I wasn't planning on showing this to you guys, so I'm sorry, we would have had something bigger, but you can see for building 928, unit 11 and 12, you can see that he identified,
You're
it
not
looks
gonna
like
have that.
3 joists in each of those units will need to be replaced, right? That's how he identified and how we can find whether there's 2 or 3 joists versus 6 or 8. I believe that was one of the issues. And I've taken way longer than I thought, and I apologize for that. I wanted to make sure that if you guys had questions about any of this in particular, we can address those.
So, Courtney or Victoria, let me ask you, I don't think there's any question that these buildings are classified as substandard. The debate on the table is whether or not they are classified as a dangerous structure. Our engineer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our engineer believes that there's just not enough information to make a determination one way or the other. But regardless of whether the board deems it a dangerous structure and we move forward with demolition, the board still has a right to declare it a substandard building and require a plan for remediation. Is that correct? Am I?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
And I think that's where we're trying to go. I think city staff and the board has been more than flexible on this case. I've said from the beginning, it's not our goal to take down one of the most valuable pieces of property in the city. That would not make any sense for us as a council to come in and just arbitrarily demolish a multifamily housing unit in the city. That's not what we're going for. We're going for making sure that the apartments are safe. So I think that is our goal. I don't think staff is of the opinion that we're trying to come down and hammer anybody on this project, but we have got to understand, the submission you submitted was 151 pages, all of which containing data and much of which containing substandard issues. The report does indicate what needs to be done to remediate it, but it doesn't include a timeline and potential cost. I think one of the considerations that the board has to take is that if these issues are not addressed or unable to be addressed, for example, if ownership doesn't have financial means to address these issues, is it going to progressively get worse and at that point become a dangerous structure if it's not already? So I am disappointed. I do think this board needs to have, it's my opinion, of course, you guys make the decisions, but I think it's my opinion that there does need to be a scope of work, a schedule, and financial information shared with this board so that we can move forward. So with that said, I guess my other question is would ownership be willing, maybe we can have some, and I don't know what the correct legal term is, but a negotiated settlement of some kind where we can work together, staff and ownership, to correct these issues and have the board check in every 90 days, 180 days, whatever it may be, to try to get this project moved along. I think the board, again, my opinion, you guys hold the sword here, not me, but I think the board would be satisfied knowing that improvements are being made. I think we just have to come up with a mechanism of how do we continue that from here without having a hearing every 2 weeks.
No, undoubtedly, Mr.
I've given a scope of repair, everything from mechanical to plumbing to electrical. But the problem is to get a scope, a price and a budget, they could go for bid. Because we already moved to the state, we have to get bids on the abatement process. So everything you're asking for is doable, but it just can't be done in this time frame of by today because you gotta go out and get bids, you gotta negotiate the bids, and things of that nature. But everything you need is there except for the cost and the time frame, and that's all gonna come out to bids.
I can understand, and just to make sure that we're clear, because the audio isn't all that great in here, so, Mr. Childress, you're saying that all that can be done and achieved, but you just need a longer timeline. And I think that's the question I'm posing is, what kind of time frame does ownership need or engineers need to compile what is needed for this board to make a decision? And I know that's $1 million question, but we also have to consider that we are several months into this since notice. And we do have citizens that reside there that are looking to this board to make a decision. So I think that would be the question is, what kind of time frame would it take, would ownership require to be able to compile a scope of work, cost estimates, and then provide financial evidence that you can support the project? And the timeline, yes. Mr. Childers, did we lose you, or is that maybe Mr. Singer? I don't know who wants to answer that.
No, it's really not in my control. I've given you what needs to be fixed. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a general contractor. It really has to be up to ownership, and I can provide support of going out and getting bids and having them put together schedules and plan. That's how I can assist, but that's really between ownership and the general contractor issue.
Because what we want to avoid is, and I'm not saying ownership would do this, but what would stop ownership if this board was to say that this is not a dangerous structure, we walk away from this declaration, and in 2 months we found out that there's no improvements made, and we're right back into the same boat. I think that's what we're trying to get into, is how do we assure...
I can tell you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're running out of time. I've told ownership that if nothing happens, I have no choice but to notify the state and the local authorities, because it will become a problem down the road. So I have to worry about my property as well, but this has to be addressed. Whether the city's involved or not, I have an obligation to make sure it does get addressed to my satisfaction.
Sure, no, and I completely understand. Again, I think it's to the benefit of both ownership and the city, but I think that's the path that we got to go. So I don't know what kind of time frame would be needed, and I don't know if maybe it would be helpful, we can recommend a recess. You guys can converse offline for a few minutes, and maybe we come back to that if you guys want to do that. But I think that's the path that we've got to take forward, is how do we assure that these issues are going to be addressed, because I don't see how there can be any argument that these buildings are not substandard. The argument is whether or not they're going to be deemed a dangerous structure in order for demolition or not.
Yeah, Mr. Spencer, I mean, if the board needs a time frame for ownership to put together that information, we're happy to recess and confer internally and make some calls to figure out what that time frame looks like, without a doubt. But I will say, and if you don't mind me adding, the intention here is to continue to be collaborative with the city, with repairs, with respect to the condition of the property. I mean, we would not have presented the city with the issues that we did discover, many of which the city did not note in their own inspection previously. It identified deficiencies for the city. We would be crazy to do that and then not do the repairs. We've made a commitment to the city and this board that repairs will be done properly moving forward. And in fact, electrical repairs, I believe, where a permit was properly pulled, properly issued, and it passed inspection by the city code inspector for previous repairs during the course and pendency of these proceedings. Our intention is to continue to pull permits, continue to collaborate with the city, and continue to make the improvements. However, we just don't believe, and we don't believe the evidence shows, that this is a dangerous or unsafe structure. And again, I take the board's point of the somewhat voluminous report, and digesting it all, I'd had to read it multiple times myself. But the position we're taking is not a position taken lightly. And I do think it's important to sort of recap what it is exactly went into this report and the ultimate position we're taking before the board today. If the board may recall, we are the 6th owners of the property. In September of last year, there was a fire in building 929, unrelated to any substandard issues or conditions. It was an internal fire in one of the units that was contained in the units. In September itself, Chief Watley came, and he and his crew thankfully put out the fire very quickly and requested ownership tear down all the walls in the kind of surrounding units, which totaled 6, to be able to look to see if any fire damage had extended. Once those walls were removed and all the beams and internal members were exposed, the city requested an engineering report, which was the AJ engineering report from October and December of 23, which looked at just the 6 fire damaged buildings, which had everything exposed to it. Subsequent to that, a warrant was issued and an inspection was done. And thankfully, with Chief Watley's assistance and efforts, we know that 6 units 7 units were subsequently inspected in totality at this property by the city. And those 7 units are the units that the city based the administrative order of a dangerous, unsafe condition on. And I think it's also important to note that of those 7 units, 6 of them were unoccupied and in a state and condition in which the previous tenant had left it, which is why you saw things in photos like smoke detectors being removed, batteries missing, things that would otherwise be fixed and properly addressed prior to releasing those units. They were completely vacant and left the way they were. Half of those units have been leased, and they have been improved to have all the deficiencies noted in the photographs before leasing them to these new tenants. Since that time, and I'm just going to show this as a relative scope here, the city's determination was based on 7 units that were inspected at the property. We have now, Tony Childress has now inspected and done an RES survey with actual data, which is supported here in this report, of 34 units at the property. And I'm excluding the fire units from all of this. So, Mr. Childress has looked at over about 4.5 times the units the city looked at in coming to this determination. We've looked at the exterior, we've looked at the interior of the units. We've had professional licensed engineers at every turn do what they do in their core competency in examining these units and these properties. We've looked at the exterior issues, we've looked at the interior issues, and we didn't limit it to the notes that the city has left in their underlying inspection report supporting the order. We had our consultants go in and say, identify anything that could be life safety. As Mr. Spencer has reminded us and his board on multiple occasions, we are concerned about the life safety issues. I can go into detail about the remedial measures that have been taken to date on things like siding, exposed wiring, the stair treads, fastening the guardrails, et cetera, but our understanding obviously was to focus on the things that really are everyone's concern, the safety of the inhabitants, the tenants, and any people visiting the property. So the conclusion that we're drawing that this is not an unsafe or dangerous property is based on a substantial amount of data done predominantly and exclusively by licensed engineers in the state of Texas in their respective fields. And it is that empirical data from these experts that support the fact that this is not an unsafe or dangerous condition. It's not something that we're pulling on a whim. I think we've been honest with the board from the get-go here, that we're not saying that there aren't things that need to be repaired, that we're not saying there aren't things that need to be addressed. Many of the things discovered were things that were original construction or built that way, not a product of deterioration. But we're the owners. We recognize that. We know that. We intend to make the repairs. We intend to pull the permits for the repairs. The city has full disclosure of what it is we intend to repair and the deficiencies noted. Our intention is to go on and continue with that plan to do the repairs. However, we do not believe that it is an unsafe or dangerous condition. And we take that position based on professional experts who have looked at 4 to 5 times the amount of units that the city looked at to make its determination. And in fact, I believe Mr. Coker last time here stated that based on his observations with Chief Watley during the February inspection of those 7 units, his recommendation was to retain a structural engineer to figure out what's going on here. And that's what we've done. Someone who has specialty in this area, who has looked at empirical data, and who has actually taken steps over the last 6 months, and predominantly over the last 45 days, to really get through this property and figure out what's going on. Those deficiencies are noted. Those deficiencies intend to be repaired. But we do not believe it is an unsafe or dangerous property.
Couple of quick questions. The RES data, did we get that for all buildings, or was it just one? For some reason, I was thinking it was just one.
The RES, I believe, is for 929. I did not see an RES report for the other buildings. They know where they're going to cut out the 12 by 12 panels, but I did not find an RES.
Was there RES on the other buildings as well? Is that included in this report?
It should be. There was RES done on all 34 of the units.
Okay. So I think our point is that we're not negating the professional services that were provided. The documents and the information was provided to us on Friday. The city's contracting engineer and structural engineer have not had an opportunity to thoroughly review just to confirm. The point is that there are still substandard issues that we have to try to address. And how do we guarantee that those substandard issues are going to be addressed? I think that's the goal we're trying to get to. I think we're on the same page, I really do.
Right.
But how do we find a path moving forward to assure or provide some level of assurance that the substandard issues get addressed? And that's where I think we get to a point of maybe we come up with a negotiated settlement of some kind, provide some kind of timeline and review. I mean, if that's your intent to review it, that's our intent, or that if it's your intent to repair it and bring it up to standard, it's our intent to have it repaired and brought up to standard. We're on the same team. I think we just need to figure out how do we get there, what kind of time frame is needed to identify the scope of work, cost of work, a schedule for work that we can stay attuned to so we're all on the same page. I think that's what our goal is at this point, from staff recommendation anyway. Of course, board, you have the voice, but, right. And I'm sorry, Ed. Did you want to say something?
We want these things livable. They're apartments. They are a big chunk of our town for decades. And the people that live in them have a right to live in something that's safe and that's homey, and to live in something that, based on the things that we've discovered that need repair, I guess bottom line, we just expect you guys to stop fiddling around and get in there and repair it and let us know it's repaired and show us proof, etc. And that's what we're asking, bottom line. Fix the things, please.
And we are on the same page, Council.
That's what we want.
We certainly are, and you
We're
know.
not asking to tear them down, we want them fixed and livable, beyond livable,
Of course,
okay?
absolutely.
And we would, actually, we would like to know that, how are you guys gonna pay for this? I mean, I'm really interested in that. I don't need your checkbook, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, if you do the kind of repairs that it looks like you need to do, that's gonna take some money. And based on things that we've seen in the past, we're a little concerned that you may spend a certain amount of money and say, oh, that's all the money we've got, and leave off fixing the rest of the things. So we're just concerned that you fix everything that needs to be fixed, and you show us that you can afford it up front. And we would like a timeline. We honestly do not want this to drag on 4, 5, 8 years. Get a timeline to us, show us that you're serious. Every 60 days, I don't want to go any further out than 60 days when you guys show us something. That's my personal opinion, not the board's at all. But this 90 days, 120 days, that's too long. The people are living in these buildings. They need to know they're safe. They need to know they're comfortable. They need to know you guys care and come in and fix their buildings. And we want to know that you're fiscally able to do that, and we want to know how long it's going to take you. I'll stop. Yeah.
So far, we haven't heard that yet.
Yeah.
As far as how long?
How long is it gonna take to fix everything?
That's what, if that's what the board would like to get information, we can go make a couple phone calls, like we said, if the board's able to
We
recess and
expected
figure it
that
out.
tonight, based on and y'all agreed, you walked out and agreed to everything that we discussed, and we expected financial, how you're gonna pay for it, how long you're gonna take, what kind of things you're gonna do, and frankly, we didn't get what we expected.
I understood, your Councilwoman. Respectfully, I believe we believe this is what the local government code says too. One of the board's determinations is that if the board were to determine it was unsafe and a dangerous structure, then implementing a timeline to allow it to be repaired to come out of that category or classification is where the timeline, scope, et cetera, is pertinent. However, we just believe, and we believe the only evidence from professionals is that it is a safe place for the inhabitants. And we've submitted previously to the board, and again resubmitted in this last submission, over 24 tenants who have written handwritten notes that they do enjoy living there, that management is attentive, that the property is not dilapidated. We do care about our tenants. We do intend to make the repairs. From the financial wherewithal standpoint, I cannot tell you the peeling back the layers of the onions of the total net assets of ownership or the affiliates of ownership. But what I can say is they have spent over $100,000 to date since February on this issue. They intend to continue to spend money, and in fact would not be paying myself and Mr. Formey to sit here for the board if they did not intend to save the property and right the ship.
Right.
Understood that they want to save the property. I totally get that. It's a big, expensive piece of property. It's apartments, people live there. I totally get that. What we're after is stop fooling around and do it. I mean,
So-
we've spent months and months and months of people saying, well, we're gonna do this, we think that. We disagree with you. Blah, 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 blah. We want this thing fixed, and we would like to know a timeline from you guys. All of the things that you show that need to be repaired, the things that Chief Watley, et cetera, showed that need to be repaired, we wanna know, how long is it gonna take you?
Well, and I think too, so let me add that, you know, there are various definitions for dangerous, and deeming a building dangerous, a dangerous structure can be very subjective. We have experts that have a feeling that this could be or is a dangerous structure. You have experts that feel otherwise. I think what I'm trying to avoid is instead of getting into a battle of the experts, which is only going to cost ownership more, cost the city more, cost us more time, and not resolve an issue. That's why I would like to come up with some sort of, how do we fix this going forward so it's in the best interest of ownership, best interest of the city, and really in the best interest of the people that live there too, to try to get things fixed. How does this board have assurance that there are issues in here that I understand and I'm not an engineer, I'm not worried necessarily about the building falling down, but I've personally been in these buildings, I've seen things, and I've been a firefighter for 20 years. There are things that I would personally deem dangerous. And so I think that's where we get to a niche point, is how do we resolve this going forward without having to go through a whole bunch of legal hoops and cause all kinds of problems that are just going to cause problems for ownership and problems for the city? Is there not any sort of negotiated settlement? So I guess that's what I'm asking is ownership interested in a negotiated settlement that we can work out with staff that would provide guidelines to be able to correct the issues and regular reporting back to the board, whether that be 60 days, 90 days, whatever the board chooses. I will say I think 90 days is more appropriate, only because working in the professional world, developing those reports and standards and putting things out for bid, that stuff tends to take time. So I do think 90 days may be more appropriate than 60 days, but that's my recommendation. And I don't know if you want to take a recess so they can converse, or even if you want to consider going into executive session to consult with the attorney about maybe any of the details on what I'm recommending, but that's up to you.
Does staff have anything else?
Do you have
Before we
anything to
go into
add?
executive session?
If I may add, Mayor, I apologize. Just to briefly answer Mr. Spencer's question about some sort of agreement outside the bounds of the dangerous substandard procedure as far as timeline, benchmarks, repairs, absolutely, of course. We'd be happy to enter into those discussions.
Well, my opinion, that's going to be a requirement if we want to move forward. So I'm just putting that out there. So, okay, with that being said, we're going to go into executive session. Where is it? Oh,
Pursuant to, yep, right there, top one.
okay, pursuant to section 551.071, chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, council reserves the right to convene into executive sessions from time to time as deemed necessary during the meeting to receive advice from its attorney on any posted agenda item as permitted by law. Additionally, council may convene into executive session to discuss the following, and it's item A, 551.071, pending and contemplated litigation or seek advice of the city attorney. So time is 6:56. We're going to executive session. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. The time is 8 o'clock. Do we have a motion from executive session?
I make a motion to table further action on this case for 60 days on the following conditions. 1, owner will provide scope or list of proposed repair work within 14 days of today. 2, city will review scope of work and provide owner a list of all repairs required for substandard conditions within 30 days from today. 3, owner will provide the city manager a timeline and budget for required repairs within 45 days of today. 4, within 60 days from today, the city and owner shall execute a settlement agreement that incorporates the required repairs, timeline and budget, and authorize the city manager to execute the same. 5, owner will agree on the record to these conditions for tabling this action.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Would you poll the council? Or would you poll the board?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
So 2 things. Madam Secretary, if you don't mind, can we make sure that motion and wording exactly is provided to ownership? So they have the exact stipulations of what was stated here tonight. And then does ownership agree to those, or do you need us to repeat what the stipulations were?
14 days from today for a list of proposed repairs, 30 days from today from the city on what needs to be repaired and not repaired, 45 days from today on budget and timeline, reconvene in 60. 60 execution of settlement.
The only thing that I would ask on that is, it looks like we'll have about 15 days to get budgets and timelines together. If we could have a little bit more time on that, I don't know if that would shorten up the city's time to respond on the scope, because that typically takes about 2 weeks to get budgets from everybody. And I just wouldn't want to be pushing that, because we need to have those to you 15 days after we get your list, or agreed list. And if that means,
Truncating those first 2.
yeah. We can try and get you our owner list of scope in 10 days. If you guys could get us the city list of repairs within 20 days?
So what I would tell you is if you got me a scope or list tomorrow, I would have our staff review it immediately and have it back to you by the end of the week. That's not a problem on the scope and list. What I would say is I think the overall timeline to achieve this can certainly be sped up, but not expanded upon. Does that make sense?
No, I mean,
So,
if we can change the owner list of scope to 10 days, and maybe even 7 days,
Yeah.
we'll shorten ours, and then if you guys can get the city list of repairs, like I said, 20 days or something like that, that way we just have more time between when we get the city's list and when we have you the budgets, but the budgets will still be within 45 days.
in 15, you don't think 15 days is enough for you to make your best estimate on a potential budget or timeline?
Well,
Yeah.
I was, certainly the spirit, thank you, we understand that, and certainly the spirit of the recess and the motion carried by the board today is to collaborate and to have an open line of communication with the city. And I don't suspect if we were to accelerate any of the timelines to get the information to the city wouldn't be more than forthcoming in getting the information back. We had no issue with getting the list of the previous units from after the last meeting. We worked well with the city. The city was great in giving it to us. We intend to work well with city staff moving forward as well. And we appreciate your time, and we've taken note of the motion. Yes, sorry for the long-winded.
So are we good?
And
Everything good?
I know your schedule's full, but if we can try to get that to him tomorrow as soon as possible. Thank you. Yes, yes.
60 days.
Okay, if there's nothing else with that, we will adjourn the Building and Standards Commission meeting, and we'll reconvene the Everman City Council meeting.
May
You
we
guys-
be excused? May we be excused?
Yes.
Thank you all very much for your time again. Thank you all.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing going. First item, consent agenda, item A, minutes, April 2nd, 2024, joint meeting, Buildings and Standards Commission and the Everman City Council. April 16th, 2024, joint meeting, Building and Standards Commission and the Everman City Council. May 7th, 2024, joint meeting of the Everman Economic Development Corporation and the Everman City Council. May 21st, 2024, joint meeting, Building and Standards Commission and the Everman City Council. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Poll the council.
Place 1,
Aye.
place 2, place 3, place 4,
Aye.
place 5,
Aye.
place 6. Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next time is financials, February 2024 and May of 2024. Do we have a motion to accept?
I move something. I move we accept the financial report as read.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Poll the council.
Place 1,
Aye.
place 2, place 3, place 4,
Aye.
place 5,
Aye.
place 6. Aye. Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next item's discussion items. Item A, Charter Review Committee 2025.
So this is on here just as a discussion item. Typically, charters are reviewed anywhere between 5 to 7 years. Council typically appoints a charter review committee. I don't think city administration has any recommended changes to bring forth, but if the council would like to, it has been 5 years, over 5 years since our last charter review. We can certainly look to establish a charter review committee. It would be our recommendation, if there were going to be any changes, to do those changes this fiscal year because of the budget impact. We do not have any other elections scheduled this year, therefore it would not cause any sort of adverse or additional election impact this year. Typically, to do that, we would look to have that in the May election, I believe, which means we would have to have the Charter Review Committee try to move pretty quickly to have the language in, I think, around January of this year to make those changes. So I just wanted to bring it up for discussion and try to get guidance from the council. If there are any recommended changes that you would like to see, then we need to work on establishing a charter review committee.
Would you send us a copy? Would you send us a copy of the charter so we can take a look at it, please?
I sure can. So I think what may be beneficial is just because of the short timeline and how charter review can sometimes become a very long process, maybe we'll go ahead and draft, would it be a resolution? creating the Charter Review Committee. And then with that, before the next meeting, I'll send out the charter. You guys can review it. And then at that point, if you deem necessary to establish a Charter Review Committee, we can pass that resolution. If you feel there's no need, then we can just simply vote down that resolution.
Well, be honest with you, I'd like to go ahead and do it just to maybe get some people involved. And if they come back and say there's nothing needs to be changed, then we won't change it. So let's get some eyes outside of the city
Okay.
to look over our charter and see if they have any recommendations. And if we do that, then I will ask each council member to appoint or nominate one individual. So,
So 7 positions total?
yeah.
Okay.
But I'd prefer people that are already sitting on boards, if at all possible. So maybe we can get some fresh blood in here. So, somebody doesn't have a vested interest. I'd already thought about that, but doesn't pay to stick around sometimes, so.
Then we can, yes, ma'am. I will send it this evening, so everybody has it. Then we can draft a resolution before the next meeting to create that committee. And then I would recommend, just because of the short timeline, probably meeting twice a month. Would that be too much?
No, that's kind of standard.
Okay.
So, anything else on that? Okay, next item, Celebrate America Festival and plans for 2025.
All right, so I just wanted to take a quick minute and highlight Chief Watley's work on Celebrate America Festival. This was an absolutely incredible event this year. By far the largest turnout for any event I think we've ever had. We estimated more than 3,000 people, and then the crowd that was showing up for the fireworks was just insane. So it became a traffic management nightmare because people that didn't show up to the festival wanted to come see the fireworks and were trying to get in last minute. And we had to shut down the roads in accordance with the safety standards for a fireworks display, and many people were walking from pretty good distances to come check out the fireworks. So I just wanted to commend you first on an incredible job on the festival this year. It was absolutely amazing. And then highlight Celebrate America Festival for next year. So a few years ago, we had planned on the 75th anniversary for the city, but unfortunately COVID-19 hit and we weren't able to have Celebrate America that year, and we weren't able to get together and gather and celebrate. Next year, 2025, marks 80 years since the city was incorporated, and so I think that's a pretty good milestone to make up for what we missed at the 75-year mark. So as we work on budget, that's just something to kind of consider is funding and allocations for any kind of special event. I don't know what ideas the council may have above and beyond the Celebrate America Festival itself. The anniversary is actually on July 7th. So if there is any other ideas that the council has, I think now's the time to share those with staff so that we can put that into planning and motion as a part of budget considerations before Friday. If there's anything else you would like to do. Chief is already working for next year on hopefully garnishing some major sponsorships to help out. We've talked about expanding the event even more and have some great ideas. Maybe we'll have the stage. We'll see.
I want something bigger where we need an even bigger stage. I'm talking like big. I've got big goals.
So we don't have to necessarily discuss all the details tonight, but we certainly are looking for ideas for the 80th celebration of the city. So if anybody has those, please share them with us.
How about more concerts in the park?
Like throughout the year or throughout Celebrate America, like an all-day?
No, like throughout the year.
I think that's part of the stage investment when we talked about that. I don't want to get too far off topic, but that's certainly something that we're looking to do is host more events like that. If we get that stage, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
I will say that I have a plan reaching out on Facebook so we get a lot of input from individuals that came and that are citizens of the city. I want to know A, what they like, what they didn't like, so we can always improve. And B, my overall goal is to make this a very, very, very large scale event. And so I want recommendations on music labs. I'm not talking small scale, I'm talking very large scale music labs. So I want everybody's thoughts and opinions so that we can objectively seek the
send you an email of some of the stuff that I was hearing, that people were telling me, just to pass it on, so. Do we have any comments or anything else on that?
No, sir, I don't have anything else.
Okay, next item is consideration possible action, item A, resolution number 2024-07-01, resolution of the City Council of the City of Everman, Texas, approving an updated Civic Center usage application and agreement and providing an effective date. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve Resolution 2024-07-01 as read.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
So I just wanted to highlight some of the changes on here. A lot of this was, some of the changes were really just legal changes to add some more backing. One of the big changes, if you look on page 36 of the agenda packet, it talks about staff fees. One of the problems that we've run into is that when we have people that rent our facility, the agreement previously referred to audio and video equipment being available. I think we intended to allow them access to be able to use our speakers and use our projector. Many that have rented the facility felt like they had access to use all of our microphones, our video recordings, so it just didn't provide very clear language. There were some people that rented the facility that expected there to be a staff member here throughout the entirety of their event to help manage sound, manage video, and that was resulting in kind of some conflicts and some issues with our event coordinator really having to come up here a lot and trying to do some last minute corrections. Customer service has been the top priority. We want anybody that rents our facility to be happy. So she's gone out of her way, a lot of times on her own time, to try to make sure that they're happy and do her own thing. But it's just become a little bit of a problem. So we wanted to clearly outline that a little bit better in the agreement and provide an option that, hey, we will allow you to have limited access to our audio video equipment. If you need to plug something into our speakers and just play something on loop, we can do that. If you want to put a video on the projector and just play it on loop, we can do that. If you want somebody to have access to our computers and our sound system to constantly change things, that's going to require an additional fee. And this agreement allows for that. I believe that fee is $25 an hour. They can pay for a staff member to physically be here and work that equipment for them. We felt like that was pretty reasonable, very similar to how we do it with the security officers, where they would pay that individual cash, just like they do with the security officers. So we added that in here just to provide some more clarification. Other than that, there's really no other changes other than just on some of the format of it. There's no other process changes or fee changes.
I would recommend, since you have it bold, where it says, limited use of the equipment, but I would explain that to them, because I was gonna ask what that means.
Sure, so it's,
So I would, when they put out the application or whatever, I would just tell them exactly what that means.
it's kind of, and we were talking about that when we were working on this. We were talking about how do we identify, and it's just, there's so many different options to put it into writing on what would require and what wouldn't require a staff member. So that's why we kind of left it to our event coordinator to really make that determination on, okay, can I achieve this without being here? Or do I need to be here to achieve this? And that's kind of how we worded it that way. She would work directly with the client, find out what it is they're wanting, what their expectations are. She does a very good job of communicating with the people that do rent our facility, finding out what all their needs are. Tablecloths, tables, chairs, what time do you need it, air conditioning, everything. She does all that already. She communicates very well. They get a cell phone number when they rent the facility. That is her direct cell phone number. It's a city cell phone, but it's her direct cell phone number. They can call her throughout the entirety of the event. If there's anything that goes wrong, they can call her leading up to the event. She'll coordinate with them to come in here and do, if they want to come in and just take a look or take some measurements or find out sizes of tables, any of that stuff. So she does a really good job of working with it. It's just going to get very difficult to put it into wording on, okay, if you want just the...
If I say I'm gonna need the projector, you're gonna tell me right then, well, somebody needs to be here to do that.
Yes, she would be able to tell you if there was going to be a staff member here or not. And they would sign off on that when they sign the contract. So she would make that determination before they even made a deposit. There wouldn't be a surprise to the client.
Any other discussion? Would you poll the council?
Place 1,
Aye.
place 2, place 3, place 4,
Aye.
place 5, place 6, Mayor.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item, city manager's report. Item A, item A, city management professional services engagement with Zach Tax for the purposes of sales tax and property tax analysis tools and audit. And then B, coffee with your congressman event, July 18th.
I made sure to explicitly list these on here in case there wanted to be any discussion, particularly on Zach Tax. So here recently, we've been trying to figure out ways of auditing and improving our sales tax. We reached out to Andrew Friedman, who serves as our financial consultant with Samco Capital, and asked him about any potential firms that we might be able to engage with that do sales tax audits. And he recommended Zach Tax. Zach Tax was founded by a former city manager with the city of Hudson Oaks. It is a software platform that allows us to import our sales tax data, and this has been something we've been trying to figure out how to do for a long period of time, is how do we take that sales tax data and analyze it? How do we determine as a city who our top sales tax payers are? What are the trends? Are they trending up? Are they trending down? What markets are most utilized here within the city? Do we have more sales tax coming from brick and mortar businesses or more sales tax coming from remote locations like Amazon or other online vendors, Walmart? So we have been given a demo. We tried out the demo, and after the first 5 minutes of trying out the demo, I was sold. It is an absolutely amazing analysis tool that we are coming on board with. The cost of it is affordable within our budget, professional services, and it's something that I just think we really need as we have so much changing within the city for us to be able to analyze what businesses are successful, what's not working for us, and to try to attract the right businesses here. So I'm excited about taking that data. We're still waiting on the property tax portion to be imported in, but we'll also be able to analyze property taxes as well and identify potential land uses. I think this software will help us determine future land use plans better. It will also help us determine development agreements as well. So we can take, with this software, we can take development agreements and potential developers and map it out on a map and identify whether or not that's going to be profitable for a city or not profitable for a city. We can actually, with the new tools in here, take a map of a neighborhood, and it will determine what the anticipated street maintenance cost of that neighborhood is, what the anticipated police and fire cost of that neighborhood is, and whether or not the city is having to subsidize the existence of that neighborhood or not. We can do that with commercial development too to help us target redevelopment areas. So there's a lot of really neat features in here for a cost of less than $5,000 a year. In addition to that, they provide professional services that includes audit of sales tax, so they will go through our data, make sure that we are collecting all the potential sales tax that we should be collecting. And in addition, they will identify any areas that we could potentially improve on. For example, self-sourcing options that may be available to us. If we have a labor function here where maybe they're manufacturing somewhere else, can we attract that manufacturer to come in here and increase that sales tax locally? So a lot of different options for us. On the auditing side of it, we would only pay them for increased revenue that's brought back, so that's on a percentage basis. The software portion of it is a flat rate cost based off our population per year, so it's less than $5,000. I plan to, once we get the property tax portion up, sharing those reports with you just so you can see it, and when you have questions about who our top sales tax providers are or property tax providers are, we'll be able to provide that information to you. So it's a great tool. Yes. Oh, you did list that one off, didn't you? Coffee with the Congressman. So Congressman Mark Vesey, he's been going around to different municipalities and hosting a coffee with the Congressman. He is asked to come here and use our Civic Center on July the 18th. So we have accommodated him. That is a Thursday. It is in the morning from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m., so it's about an hour and a half. Council members are absolutely encouraged to come and visit with him if you would like. He will be here, as well as citizens. So if you have any questions or needs, he will be happy to visit with you.
The office already reached out to me telling me that I need to be here.
Perfect. I did provide him your email addresses, so I'm glad you got them. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
No, that was all done beforehand, so. Next item's mayor's report. I had something, I forgot what it was, but, just want to tell everybody though, I initiated meetings with the Forest Hill and Kennedale mayors and city managers, and we invited them here and really had a great response out of the two cities, and looking at ways that we can join forces maybe to reduce our budgets and help each other out. And very productive meeting, and before the meeting was over, the other two mayors want to start meeting quarterly. So we've already got a meeting set up for next week, and that'll be with Public Works, so we can start talking about public works issues, and then we'll have a meeting coming up in October. So, but we'll keep you abreast of what happens there. But like I said, it was just a very positive meeting, and hopefully we'll see some good things come out of it. So with that being said, the time is 8:27, and we are adjourned. No, because none of us, we all ran unopposed, we didn't have to have the election, we forgot.